or that position, shoot your voice out. Now you're projecting. Now you're amplifying the frequency range that we hear as loudness. You're placing your voice up and forward a little bit better. Everything gets better for high performance singing. By the end of this video, you'll know the top 4 most crucial steps I teach every single student that comes to me for voice lessons. The top 4 things that you can start right now that will immediately give you results to improve your voice, increase your range, and finally be on track to start singing the way you've always wanted to. I'm Draven Gray with Rock Singing Lessons, and through my lessons and courses, I've helped thousands of students like you learn how to sing effortlessly and with confidence. Now, before we dive in, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on any of the amazing videos we have planned for you. Let me start with this. The first and most important thing on your journey towards vocal mastery: the onset, the beginning, the setup. So this is an onset. This is also an onset. The point there being, if the onset, if the structure, the beginning of it, everything in balance is good, what follows is good too. If the onset is not good, what follows, the training, the singing that follows, isn't that good either. It's really a balance of the onset package or the phonation package, those top 6 or 7 elements that go into making that sound good, that come into balance to make that sound good. And you could use that sort of as a self-diagnosis checklist. So when your voice isn't doing what you want it to, or you want it to do something different, you're able to go through this checklist and figure out what might be off and what might be need to be brought back into balance. And that would be your pitch. So there's probably 60 or 70 of them, but the top 6 or 7. Pitch. If you're not on pitch, it doesn't sound good. Your embouchure, your mouthpiece, lips, teeth, tongue, and jaw. Like, if that's not in a good position, everything else comes out of balance. Your acoustics, more edging towards front, more neutral towards the middle, more curving towards the back of your soft palate, and your placement of the voice. Think of it that way. If your placement isn't good, if you're singing from the throat, and we'll talk about that in a minute, rather than up here, then it's not going to sound that good either. Let's keep going. The compression, the amount of closure you have in the vocal folds, the pressure of that closure. If it's too much, you choke off. If it's too little, you're too airy. The larynx position, up and down. If you sing and you dampen the larynx a little bit, it adds weight to the voice. If you're singing with a neutral larynx, it's a different sound. If your larynx is too low, it gets dopey. If your larynx is too high, you start to get more compression, start to choke off again, which throws off your acoustics. So I think you're getting the idea here. So that's pitch, embouchure, the placement of the voice on the soft palate, the amount of compression, larynx position, breast support. If you're not supporting it enough, it'll fall apart. If you're supporting it too much, it'll stiffen up. You lose agility, you lose control. And the way you use that breast support is important, and we'll get to that in another video. I also want to say visualization would be another thing to pay attention to. So pitch, embouchure, the placement of the voice, amount of compression, position of the larynx, breast support, and visualization, that being not just what you think about going on here, but what you think is going to happen when you open your mouth and how other people are going to respond. That plays a big role in it. Okay, that's the onset package. And what we just did is called a track and release onset. There's a lot of different onsets. Every single syllable is an onset releasing into a vowel. This is a track and release onset. Track and release is buzzing on a nasal consonant or tracking resonance. Resonant tracking is MNNG or nasal consonants. That tracking is engaging vocal twang I'll talk about that in a sec. But it engages a certain amount of compression that amplifies the voice. It places the voice more in the soft palate, up and out, up and forward, and starts buzzing the whole front of the mouth. It's really good for you. Okay, so twang. Well, just try it. I want you to feel this first. Let's try an M. And I want you to buzz the front of your mouth while you're singing that M. Keep it there when you open to an E. Keep that resonance there. Do you feel that's away from your throat? It's more up here. Even when you open to that E, it's more up here. Okay, tracking like that. Besides the benefits of just getting your voice singing and getting into a high performance position and engaging vocal twang, I want to say what twang is. Twang, have you ever stuck your thumb in a water hose? You know, what happens to that water? It shoots out, like majorly shoots out. Well, in twang vocal mode, or the setup and structure of the muscles and shape of your vocal tract, in twang, the epiglottis comes down and narrows the vocal tract. The epiglottis is that flap that closes when you swallow. It comes down and narrows the vocal tract. The larynx tilts forward, and you experience, sticking your thumb in a water hose, that pressure increases. Not that you're having to increase breath support. It's more that position shoots your voice out. Now you're projecting. Now you're amplifying the frequency range that we hear as loudness. You're placing your voice up and forward a little bit better. Everything gets better for high performance singing. And twang is the secret in that. Okay, are you getting that? That narrowing of the vocal tract makes your voice shoot out. So track and release is a way to set your voice up for twang vocal mode, which is great for contemporary singing. Try that up here too. It helps place your voice. It helps amplify the voice. It's also what's called a semi-occluded phonation, or a partially closed phonation. So you're making a phonation, a sound that's coming out, and something is partially stopping it up here. It's resisting it and pushing back, which forces you to balance compression and air support. And that semi-occluded phonation, so we'll probably go through this again. Lip trills. There's something stopping it, forcing you to balance compression and air support. Granted, that's really light. Track and release is a really good one. The straw is a really good one. There's multiple types of semi-occluded phonations you could use. I'm sure you see multiple straw exercises. But that balance of compression and air support, whenever you need to bring balance into your voice, tracking or track and release onset is just a really good place to go to try to bring back balance. Okay, so if you want to get used to balance and the beginnings of good placement for your voice, come back to track and release. I want you to become obsessed with tracking. Become obsessed with it. Where that's an M, I'll get into another way later, but that M, getting vocal twang active and getting the whole front of your mouth buzzing, get obsessed with that. You need to get used to that placement. You need to get out of your throat and into resonance. So 75% of the time that you would be singing along to a song on the radio, track it instead. Now, I did mention we use different onsets to address different muscle groups, the different structures of the things. We can use maybe 10 different ones. Yeah, about 10 different ones I use in my courses and in my private lessons, but I want to stay on track here. So just so you know, those onsets address very specific things. This one's about twang. This one's about placement. To give you a better understanding of onsets, I think I already said it. Every syllable is an onset releasing into a vowel, right? That brings me to the second most crucial thing for your singing vowels. Now, singing vowels are very different than speech vowels. Singing vowels, well, let's start with speech vowels. You're used to it. You're hearing me do it right now. More forming the vowels down here. I feel a lot happening right here. About 80% of my voice is here, and then I start to add some extra resonance up here through the shape of my mouth, add some extra resonance in the nasal cavities and in the head. I start to feel that make up the sound of my voice. Singing vowels, flip that. Now it's 80% up here in resonance, maybe 20% here where the vibration's actually happening, where the sound's actually coming from the vocal folds vibrating. So when I sing, I'm up here. It's really different because I'm lifted up to the soft palate. I'm a little bit more structured. I'm more focused in my vowels. They're not all over the place anymore. I'll get to that in a second too. But this is a good example. Believer. The word believer. I chose that because it has an has an e, has an There's a lot going on with that. It has a b, has a li, an l, and then a ver. Now that's extreme, but just saying believer. If I say that and then try to sing it the same way in that speech, but I'm on pitch. Believer. It doesn't sound good. It's not focused on resonance. Now, if I lift the voice, if I float the voice up here versus in the throat, if I'm 8% up here and I'm floating it, I'm lifting it up and I'm focusing that energy a little bit more, it sounds ridiculous to speak it that way. But when I say believer, see, it's resonant. It rings out. It's not dictated by the vowels. It doesn't go all over the place. It's floating up here. It's away from the throat. It's honestly buzzing up here, like we talked about with tracking. Okay. One way to do that, one way to lift up that way, is by using a horizontal embouchure, the fancy French for mouthpiece, lips, teeth, tongue, and jaw, or a smile, a sneer. Think of it like biting into an apple. Can you do that? Like you're about to bite an apple. Okay, when you do this, if you just smile, like even when I'm talking, if I just smile, half the work's done for me to lifting the resonance to the soft palate. I want you to try this. Let's go ahead and sing Believer. I'm going to start you down here. Let's do it one for male, one for female. Why not? So, Believer. It's easier to get up there, right? Try it up here, women. Believer. Okay? Does half the work for you. That's really important, especially as you approach the break in your voice. You're approaching head voice, and I'll get into that in another video for sure. But that horizontal embouchure is really important. Sneer, snile, smile, like show your canines, lift the upper lip a little bit. Bite into an apple, lips, teeth, tongue, and jaw. Okay? Don't retract your tongue. Keep it right behind your bottom front teeth as a default position where it just touches the bottom front teeth. Maybe even up in the back where it touches your upper molars. Believer! That'll keep the resonance up here as well. Okay, another way that I teach you to lift the voice like that and float the voice up here, it feels more like floating when you're in chest voice. That's why I keep saying that. Where when you're up higher, it starts to get a little bit more focused. But one way I do that is over your microphone. You might have heard over the pencil before. You stick a pencil in your mouth, sing up and over it. If you're using a microphone, you can sing up and over your mic. Okay? Hey! I'm singing up and over. If you don't have a microphone right now, try that with your finger. Place a finger on your bottom lip and sing up and over. Let's try that again with Believer. Believer! It's up this way. Now here. Believer! It's up and over. Now I want you to try that with your favorite songs too. Maybe a line that you've been struggling with. Try it. See how different it feels. Now, anytime you find yourself singing more down here than up here, use that up and over. Place your finger on your bottom lip. Pick up your microphone. Think up and over that. Okay, now if you notice the immediate difference in your voice, post the word finally in the comments. Now, the third most important step to improve your singing right now is anchoring your resonance, or vowel anchoring for consistent sound color. You heard me do it when describing singing versus speech vowels and using that believer. I talk about being a little bit more focused in your vowels versus pulled all different directions. Okay, now as you go higher, it's going to focus in a little bit more. As you go lower, it's going to open up and just float the voice a little bit. But you don't want oo, e, r, la. Those are the common ones I see, oo, e, r, and l, that pull the most drastic. You want them anchored to a spot or tethered to a spot. Okay, this gives you a lot more consistency in your voice and in your resonance versus speech habits. Believer! Where they're all over the place. I may be lifted, but I'm not focused. Okay, does that make sense? I'll show you a way to do that. But first, I want to say watch out for diphthongs too. Diphthongs are when one vowel moves into another or it like crosses over, like the word in English. I, e, e, a, I. It's two vowels or more that just shade into each other or fade into each other. If you wanted to sing that, that may be a stylistic thing, but ultimately I want you to have control over that. Yes, you're hearing that E in there, but it's closing the word. I'm not singing E. I'm singing the most open vowel. 97% of that time, I'm singing the more prominent vowel of that sound, of that diphthong. I, or A. And just saying, watch out for them because sometimes those can trip you up and move you into a vowel you don't want to be in because you're singing out a vowel that you don't necessarily need to be singing out. It might be just trying to close the word. Or maybe your jaw is closing and it's narrowing that vowel down more towards an E, but you don't want to sing E. It's even E. E is E, E, E. It's an IH. Your U's become or OU or EW. It's ew. Your E's become E. Things just change. Things change when you start focusing that resonance into one general area and you start really getting into the lyrics as phonetics, not words. And sometimes the words get in your way. Any language, I've seen that happen. The words will get in your way. Focus on the resonance. Focus on the phonetics of the voice. Okay. I can move that around too. And like I said, I'll get into how to use your lyrics to get into this, but I can move that resonance around. I don't have to be up here. Believer! Where it's really edgy. I can be more the middle of my mouth, more neutral in acoustics. Believer! Or I can shade it back towards a curving acoustic placement, more towards the back, or covered acoustic placement, back of my soft palate. Well, back here. Believer! Get more of a gospel sound. If I keep going, I'll start to open up the throat and drop the larynx, neutralize the larynx a bit, start getting more operatic, start getting more classical in my sound. Okay, but I can move that around. I would say different placements like that, it depends on the sound color you want in general and the type of sound you like. Like you can actually develop or find your own sound in that by thinking of where do you like your voice the most? Pay attention to where it sits on the soft palate. Pay attention to where your favorite singers sound like they might be placing that voice when they say ow, or they say or e. Where is that sound coming from? Where are they placing that? Where's the resonance ending up at? You could probably find your own voice within that you really like and that you want to develop. So now to the trick training. The way to really get into that, once you know kind of where you want to be, and you can experiment with this, you can move it around after the fact, but where you train the most is where you're going to default to the most. So I want you to try relaxed speech. I want you to say, like I was doing before, where I'm in this spot right here. If I track on an NG, for instance, hung, and where that buzzes, if I speak into that spot through a line of lyrics, yes, it sounds ridiculous to speak there, but I want you to try it. Speak there and then sing there. Take it to your favorite song. Right now, since we're together, let's try Believer. Ba, ba-leva, ba-leva. That's the NG spot. That's more edging. If I go a little bit further back, ba-leva, then I'm activating everything from the front, from that NG spot to that middle spot where I'm placing my resonance. Believer. So, believer, 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 not believer, believer. Okay, now up here. Try it up here, women. Believer, believer. Try that with some of your favorite lines. Okay, now, the fourth and most important thing to use in your singing, the one thing that everything else has been working on, everything else you've been working on is leading to, is cry. Yes, I said cry. Cry vocal mode, or as Joe has still described it, a voice quality, cry voice quality, is so good for your voice. In fact, I do want to say many decades ago, just to make teaching easier, she separated the voice into source and filter. And that filter, that shape, muscle structure that produces specific types of sounds in the vocal tract is what we're calling a vocal mode. That combined with acoustics is a vocal mode. Okay. Different vocal modes, for instance, are like speech. Speech is a vocal mode. It's a certain setup, produces a certain sound. Falsetto is a vocal mode. Now, I'm not talking about your typical classical falsetto, which is male head voice. I'm talking about open and airy, as she defined it. Okay, open and airy. That's a falsetto vocal mode. Yelling's a vocal mode. It can be turned into a belt, but it's a shape first. If I, hey, and I'm loud and proud and getting that out there and I'm pushing the voice a little bit, there's a certain shape, a big open resonance, more from the larynx dampening, more in the pharynx, more lifted into the soft palate, and more compression coming out. And I can take that shape that I was pushing for and just create the shape at any level of effort I want to. Hey! 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 Heavy versus medium light. Hey! Hey! Granted, it's a little harder medium light to get that shape because it's not as resonant. I like to do that more in the medium, more somewhere in the middle. We'll talk about mass and talk about the weight you're putting into the voice later. But I also mentioned twang. Twang vocal mode when talking about tracking. Twang is a vocal mode, certain setup and structure with the epiglottis narrowing the vocal tract, the larynx tilting forward, the resonance comes up and forward because of that. That's twang. Now there are other vocal modes as well. Opera, neutral larynx open throat versus twang. That's a terrible example, but that neutral larynx open throat versus hey, hey. You can hear the difference in that shape and structure. It changes the voice. The most important vocal mode you'll learn is cry vocal mode. Now, cry, the reason it's the most important, it relieves constriction. It thins out the glottis like a rubber band. It thins it out. Instead of you stretching it out with all the muscles, you're thinning out, which gives you compression and gives you some medial compression in the middle. Instead of muscling and thickening up the vocal folds, you're getting compression from thinning out. That makes it way easier to make a phonation, to make a noise. You don't need nearly as much pressure to do so. In fact, that is pressure. It's holding on to things. It can hold on to something. When you stretch out a rubber band, you can hold something in the middle because of that medial compression. And it's adducting better. You're getting, it's just so much easier to sing because of the thin glottis. It has a top-down resonance to it. It has this, it helps you get here. It helps you get in that spot I was talking about, that resonant energy, getting it in the right spot. The glottal thinning, besides making it easier to sing, and that whimper, not a whine, but a whimper cry sound that comes from that, other people hear that and immediately empathize with it and get more emotionally into what you're doing. For yourself, neurologically speaking, you place yourself into the cry reflex, you're going to tell your body it's time to have an emotion, whether that's excitement, anger, happy, you name it, any extreme emotion, we activate the cry reflex. And I would go as far to say Command and control the cry reflex is singing. So, cry vocal mode. It has two parts. It has a top-down resonance and a glottal thinning. The glottis is the opening of the vocal folds, just in case you're wondering. So the opening, the empty space, the glottis. So I say glottal thinning, you're taking the vocal folds and thinning them out. Let me walk you into that feeling. For cry, the most important thing you can learn, okay? I want you to start with an NG. Track on an NG. Like it hung, sung, but not on the vowel, on the NG. Let's see. Women up here. And then I want you to open. So you're tracking an NG, but it's track and release. So open to an E. Let's try up here. Where that's buzzing, where that NG is buzzing, keep the resonance there. Okay, now when you get into that NG, I want you to pull up into it. Go deeper in that soft palate. Go behind the nose, like you're pushing into the nose from behind, or you're behind the eyeballs. Maybe you're feeling it a little bit up here in the nasal cavities. Maybe you're feeling it up here in the brow, in the true mask. You're getting the voice in the mask, but you're pulling up to it. There's a lot of ah-ishness in that. That's okay. You're shading a little ah into that eh because you're crying through it. That's the top-down resonance of cry. Okay? Now let's try the glottal thinning of cry. A couple ways to get into this. First, I want you to try the top of the throat, just a whimper, very light pulse and release, or fry. Okay, can you do that? Now this is different. Suddenly you're feeling that it stays right there because you're light. You're not going to resonate as much. You're going to feel it thin out instead. If you're up here for women,
it's like stuck in the back here.
I want that. We want that to happen. It's just thinning. You're not focused on being resonant right now. Focus on staying pretty light in this mixed voice type feel and just sitting on top of the throat. If you can't do the pulse, I want you to try a light and more of a head voice, and then up it and try to get into a mixed voice. Sounds awful getting into it. That's okay. That's not the point. You're trying to get to a thin glottis. It just sits right there. You'll notice there's a little twang in it. There's a little twang in cry. That's okay. Okay? Can you do that? It's hard. This isn't easy. You're too light to really get control over the voice there. You're just trying to thin out. Put enough into it that you thin out. So you had the NG, you had a pulse and release, or light ishness. It's called a messa de voce. Maybe we'll get into that later. But where you upped into that thin position. So you have the top-down resonance, you have the thin position. Now let's try to put them together. I want you to pulse or get that light, thin feeling into the NG. You're already on an NG. But pulse, whimper, cry into it, then release to an E. Pull up into the NG, pulse, whimper into it. And up here. That's cry. You feel it? Once you try to sing a song, after we get done with this, try to sing a song, crying your way through it. You'll notice a huge difference. So you might notice that cry's taking you up and over, right? It's that up and over idea. It's placing your acoustics. It's getting vowel anchoring. It's starting to do that for you. So you might think of your main sound color, your vowel anchor is placed front to back, like where you place edging, neutral, curving. It's front to back, and cry is up and down. And then you're thinning out with it. So regardless of how you combine all these ideas together, cry through everything. Everything. So now you have the four Most crucial steps that will give you immediate results in your singing. Become obsessed with tracking, with buzzing in the front of your mouth. On an M behind the nose or on an NG. Okay? M buzzing the whole front of the mouth, or the NG kind of more behind the nose, but it's still all that same area, getting you the top down and cry. Lift the voice up and over. Use your finger, use a microphone. Just use a Michael Jackson voice, or just pull up into cry. So where you lift into the soft palate, that's your main sound color. Just lift though, float the voice. Okay, and 3, don't just float your resonance, but start to focus it. You'll feel it more focused as you go up than you will as you come down. But your general sound color, using relaxed speech through your lyrics to find, split the lyrics into that area you like the most, and then sing into it. And number 4, way to take all of that one step further. Cry, whimper, top-down resonance, glottal thinning. Through everything. Watch this again, implement the concepts. I have no doubt that you'll start seeing immediate results in your singing voice. And if this has helped you, please like and share the video. Help us help more people. Also, as I mentioned before, I teach rock singing lessons where we show you how to find your unique voice and customize your voice training specifically to your goals. Check out the link in the description, and I'll see you soon.